It's August 29th, 2024, and this is an introduction to a children's museum layout that I built many years ago for the Iowa Children's Museum, which is in Coralville, Iowa. It was sponsored by three railroads. It was sponsored by the Iowa Interstate Railroad, the Iowa Northern Railroad, and the Krandic Railway. We decided that the museum wanted a place to allow children to be inventive with the wooden trains, but then be inspired by the model trains running in the background. It's HO scale. It is run by just straight DC. There's two power supplies that provide the power for the back and forth Hawkeye Express train, and then it also has a mainline train. So the Hawkeye Express was a passenger train that was owned actually by the Iowa Northern Railway, but ran on the Iowa Interstate to move passengers between parking places away from the downtown area, and then move to Iowa Hawkeye Kinnick Stadium, which is in the background here. So the Hawkeye Train goes back and forth, representing Hawkeye fans getting off the train, climbing the steps up to the arena, and then over here is the parking lot where, of course, the fans are waiting to board the train that's moving back and forth. In the background is an Iowa Interstate freight that goes through scenes that are reminiscent of Iowa City. This is the bridge over the Iowa River, Iowa City Station. And then when the layout was built, they still had their shops in downtown Iowa City, but that's now changed. They're at a place called Homestead, essentially. So the layout actually runs through three different spaces. This is the main room, and the space is approximately, I would call it 12 by 15 or so. It's kind of a funny shape, but there is industries and backgrounds and so on, and the Iowa Interstate Railroad put on a high rail truck and did photographs for me of the actual perspectives as you would have seen from the railroad. So for example, oh boy, that's hard to see, but if you look in the background, there's a power plant and looking up towards downtown Iowa City in the scene, and that was again taken right off the high rail truck, which is pretty cool. Here's the Krandic Railway as it looked north to downtown. But there's operating crossing signals in a couple locations, and of course this is the Iowa Children's Museum building. This was taken outside in the parking lot, and we're basically up in a room right there. The children can push a button and the trains run for about 15 minutes. The motive power is provided by a couple of different companies. We started out with this is a Bachman locomotive. It's their Spectrum series, but it's a level higher than that. It almost seems to be something that Cotta would have built. It's got an amazing motor and drive, more than just their standard Spectrum. And then we started off for many years with the Atlas GP38s, and these trains run about 500 real miles a year. I have an hour meter on the layout. If you look in the back of this building back here, you can see that there's a little meter located right there. And at this moment it's reading 15,390 hours. So I keep track of that and know about how far the train runs in an hour. And so discovering that the real length of the Iowa Interstate between Chicago and Omaha is about 500 miles, and these trains run the actual distance between Chicago and Omaha. So the Atlas GP38s did a great job. They were the only ones that were commercially available at the time. And so we ran the heck out of these things, and I keep a couple of them around for spares if I need to, but it's getting harder sometimes to get parts from Atlas. They don't always have the motors available and so on, but they're still great workhorses. Then for many years we were running ES44s from Intermountain, and they had been very, very successful, and Intermountain was a spectacular company to work with. They provided parts for virtually nothing. We would still be running those ES44s from Intermountain, but motors are no longer available. And as you can imagine, when you go 500 miles a year, you do go through some motors. But so that's really been sort of their pause, and so those locomotives are sitting on the shelf until maybe someday I can replace them with some other type of a motor. So beginning this morning, literally, is now a Scale Trains ES44, a new locomotive that's just come out. And I've never run any Scale Trains for these extended periods of time. I love Scale Trains products, but we'll see how they do in everyday running, 7 days a week, 365. So that's going to be an interesting study. So just to show you that it does go into some other spaces, I'm going to just poke out into this area out here, and there's a train that runs through the tree. Well, it's not really a tree now, it's a kind of a castle, but you can see the track here, so the kids can run back and forth and see the trains. And then it runs over to this other space that's a children's room that I'll go over and show you here by just pausing the video. So this space represents just sort of typical Iowa farmland. There's a creek and a bridge, and of course there's a set of operating signals. The train will be coming pretty soon. A farm, and of course a grade crossing, and so on. And then eventually in the background there was discussion about maybe putting a small town, but here comes our ES-44 and its train. And so this is kind of a neat spot. Now recently they've changed the scene, so it's actually the night scene. And I'm going to turn the light off so you can see that night scene. It's pretty cool. I got to reach around over here. I'll show you the train heading back into the other room. Flip the light off. But now what you get is a kind of a moonscape, and you can see the stars and some black light that shows you some stars and things. But it's really a cool scene. Unfortunately, the camera doesn't pick it up really well because I have to block the backlight. But so that's the update for now, and we'll look forward to chatting with everybody next time. Bye-bye.